Good morning. It's John Gilkison here. It's September 27th, Wednesday, 2021. And I wanted to shoot a new video because I just finished a blog. And the title of the blog is the Albuquerque El Paso Gap. And I wrote it because there's no DC rapid charging between El Paso and Albuquerque, New Mexico, which makes it kind of rough to travel between these two cities. Now, this is of critical importance because there's two interstates that travel east and west. One's I-10, and it travels into El Paso and goes on west through Deming, Lordsburg, and on into Arizona. That would be your southern route. That's your east and west route. And there's another east and west route, which is I-40, and it travels through Albuquerque, and it goes east into Oklahoma, and it goes on west into northern Arizona. So, if you just wanted to, if you're traveling these interstates, if you wanted to reconnect from I-10 up to I-40 to continue traveling, this gap is a critical problem, really. Now that said, instead of the 260 miles, just to get from interstate to interstate, you would only really need about 220 miles. But still, with my Chevrolet Bolt with 240 miles of range, this is a problem. Not only that, for some inexplicable reason, there's no DC fast charging in Las Cruces. Although it's along that interstate route, it's just not there. Now, I've contacted Electrify America about this problem, and they say they're working on it, but so far, the only light on the horizon might be Tesla. Tesla has fast charging for Tesla automobiles in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, which is north of me here. I live in Radium Springs, which is about 20 miles northwest of Las Cruces. And supposedly, starting next year, Tesla's going to open up their fast charging network to other automobiles. We just need some kind of adapter. And I'm not sure whether Tesla's going to provide it or we would have to buy one of our own. In either case, this would help a great deal with traveling in other vehicles. Hopefully they won't charge exorbitant rates for charging. I expect to pay more than a Tesla would pay, but not horrendously more or anything. So anyway, I wrote this blog on this, and I came up with a working solution. Here's my blog, and I just published it today on the Facebook page for the Electric Vehicle Organization, EVO, SNM, Southern New Mexico. And my working solution was, because I live in Radium Springs, I only really need to travel about 200 miles to get to Albuquerque. And about 40 miles of that can be traveled on the old highway, which passes right in front of my house. And I can drive up to Caballo Lake, which is where exit 59 is, to get on the interstate. And that old highway means I only need to travel at no more than 55 miles per hour. And there's many sections of the road where I'm only doing about 45 miles per hour. And this really, I call it a low energy route because I can get about 140 miles per gallon going up to Caballo, equivalent. And once I get there, there's a charge point charger in the park, and I can use it. So what we did is we topped off our car at home to 95% state of charge, and we drove up to Caballo. And then we used the level 2 charger there to just bring the car back to 90%. And we only spent about a half an hour at the charger. And fortunately, it was free. And then we drove north towards Albuquerque. Now, I didn't want to just drive to Albuquerque just for grins, and I had no need to. About halfway, there's a place called San Antonio, New Mexico, where there's the Owl Bar and Grill, and you can get one of the best green chili cheeseburgers around there. So we drove up to the Owl Bar and Grill and had lunch, and that's a halfway point. That's 80 miles north of Caballo, and then we drove back to Caballo. So there was our 160 miles it would have taken us to get to Albuquerque, right there. And then at Caballo, we added a little bit of charge. And we didn't technically need to. We could have come home without it. But Chevy Bolts right now are under a battery recall, and they're advising you not to drive under 70 miles of range. And even with this additional charge, by the time we got home, we were down to 49 miles of range. So, but we spent another 30-40 minutes at Caballo charging. Because it was free, and then we got home and then fully charged the car there. So this solves our Albuquerque Gap problem for us. And once we're on I-40, I have a brother that lives in Chandler, Oklahoma, and it's about 800 miles to go visit him from our house. But once I get to Albuquerque and can fast charge there, I can make it. And we would have to have a stay over at a motel for one night in Tucumcari, New Mexico, and then we could make it on in the next day. Now from there, I have some relatives that live up in Bartlesville, or my wife does rather, and I have a relative that lives up in Missouri. And they could come down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and meet us there for lunch if they wanted to. But I wouldn't want to drive on to see them all the way. Anyway, now I have a good friend, Phil Knox, who lives in Denton, Texas. And so after staying at my brother's for a couple days, I think we might drive down to Denton, Texas, get a motel room there and spend the night and spend some time with my friend, Phil Knox. And then we could travel home via I-20, which blends into I-10, down in the Pecos region. And we would have another motel stay at a halfway point. I don't know where. It'd be probably east of Midland, Texas. One of those towns there, Sweetwater, whatever it might be. So we would have 3 motel stays to make this trip, and round trip would be somewhere around 1,800 miles, I'd imagine. But we could do all that in our electric car. Now, I really don't want to do it until GM completes the battery swap in this car. The story is that it's on recall, and when I go in to leave the car for them to do a battery swap, I'll be upgraded from a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack to a 66 kilowatt hour battery pack. That'll give us 20 more miles of range, and it'll should facilitate traveling a little bit, and our warranty will start brand new at that juncture. So one other thing I wanted to show you real quick was I have a new decal which I made up the other day, and I stuck on my other triangular window, and right there it is. It says, "Can be driven on the moon." And I had one wag on Facebook tell me, well, there's 3 electric cars parked on the moon right now. And there is. There's 3 moon buggies up there. My story is that the astronauts got drunk celebrating. And you know how it is. They couldn't remember where they parked their moon buggies. And they had to go home. And so they left them. They threw the key out the hatch doors to them and just split without them. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So there's 3 abandoned electric cars on the moon. This car could also be driven on the planet Mars, probably easier than on the moon. Here's my other decal for this window over here, which says, my ancestors used to have tailpipes. And I made these up, printed them out on my computer, had them laminated, and then stuck them on there with packing tape on the back side. I like them. Everybody I've showed them to seems to take about a couple seconds for it to register what the decals are saying, then they chuckle. I think they'd be a sellable item, to be honest with you. And I may try that someday. Well, I'm going to leave it right here. I've been using a better route planner to plan trips, hypothetical trips. And two of the other trips would be a trip to Scottsdale, Arizona to meet with my sister this coming February. And I'm going to do that regardless of whether we have a battery pack swap or not. Another trip we really would like to do is travel to South Padre Island. Now, we were there last April and we really enjoyed it. And we'd like to go back, only this time go back in our EV. So that's a possibility. One of the things I want to talk to my sister about when I meet with her in February is planning the next family reunion. And maybe I might be able to convince them to do it in South Padre Island. We could kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. And that's an interesting proposition. I have no idea who could make it, though. We'll see you all down the road. Happy travels, and keep the weight of them electrons down in your car. Bye-bye, everybody. Later.